Okay, so let me tell you a little story. Today, my son and I went out to see Aquaman. That was the plan anyway. So I looked up showtimes for Aquaman, and there's probably 10 theaters. We live in Columbus, Ohio, and there's probably 10 or so movie theaters to choose from at any given time. So what I did is I looked for one that was playing relatively soon, and I had two that I was going back and forth between. Like, if we can't make this one, then we'll go to this one. So what happens is I end up mixing up the theaters, and we go to this theater, and I go in and I said, 2 for Aquaman at 125, and they're like, we don't have an Aquaman at 125, and I'm like, what? And then so I figured it out. I had meant to go to the other theater in Hilliard, and I ended up going to the wrong one. So there was no showtimes anywhere near, so we couldn't just wait it out. And we had somewhere to be later in the day, so it had to be now or never. And so she's like, the teller there, she's like, is there anything else that you'd want to see? These are the movies that are playing right now. And I'm like, I don't think so, So me and Cameron, we stepped back, and we're looking at the movies, and I was like, well, we could see this. I was like, you want to see Spider-Man, Spider-Verse again? And he's like, nah, we already saw that. And I'm like, yeah, but it's really good. But, I was like, I don't want to pay to see it twice, like, especially if he doesn't want to. Like, I would be happy to. Anyway, it comes down to, I was like, oh, A Dog's Way Home. I said, that's a movie you'd probably like, right? He's like, yeah, I wanted to see that because Cameron is in love with his dog at his mom's house. Like, he has a dog at his mom's house that he's absolutely in love with. And he loves any movies about dogs. And every time he sees a dog in public, he about wells up with tears. He's so happy. So I'm like, okay. And in my head, I'm like, I really don't want to see one of these family movies about a dog and his journey home, or his journey to find a family, or his, the stereotypical dog family movie. And I'm like, you know what? This is what he wants to do. Let's go do it. I mean, he probably wanted to see this more than Aquaman anyway. Like, Aquaman was my idea, and honestly, it wasn't a huge deal to me. I didn't care to see it. It was just something to go do today. But yeah, so we end up going to see A Dog's Way Home. And this movie was really good. Like, I was not expecting it to be this good. And yes, it was it was that, your typical kind of cheesy, campy, but not so much. Like, it was just really good. It was surprisingly well done. And although I'd seen the theme a million times, I'd never seen it quite like this. And I really enjoyed it. And I felt like the acting was really good. And so the story is, there's this guy. He's like not middle-aged. He's a young 20s guy, maybe mid-20s guy. And there is a old collapsed rundown house in his neighborhood that this landlord, slumlord guy, is trying to tear down or whatever, but the kid knows that there's all these cats that are living underneath it. But among these cats, there is also a little puppy living with the cats. And he wants to save these cats, right? And he's just this good, well-to-do kid, And he's not a kid, he's a man. And he works at the Veterans Hospital, and he's just a good guy. His mom's a veteran, and he lives across the street from this abandoned house or whatever. And he is on his mission to make sure these cats don't get destroyed by bulldozers, basically. And then he finds the dog there. And the dog falls in love with him, he falls in love with the dog, and immediately, adopts this dog. But they have a rule in Denver, which is where they're at, that you cannot own a pit bull in Denver. They're considered a vicious animal. And if they catch you with one once, they impound it, they charge you a fine. If they catch you with it, if they find it out again, they euthanize it. So what happens is, the dog catcher catches the dog, and they give him one warning. They're like, we catch him out again, this is what's going to happen. Okay, so what they decide is, well, we'll just move outside of the city ordinance. You know, we'll just move right outside the city limits. But it's going to take some time to do that, so we need to send the dog to a friend of ours' farm in New Mexico. It's like 400 miles away. So they take the dog there, and like, listen, if you don't want to know like the whole movie, I mean, you can guess. You can guess how the movie turns out. It's a fun family movie. You're not going to be devastated if you go see it, obviously. But if you don't want it ruined, shut the video off now. I will tell you, it's a fantastic movie. I really enjoyed it. Take your kids. They will love it. I really, really enjoyed it, and I was dreading it going in. So let me just tell you that. And I thoroughly enjoyed this film. But anyway, back to this. So they take it to like a family friend's house in New Mexico, leave the dog there while they make the move to a house outside the city limits and everything, and then can bring the dog back safely so it won't be taken by the dog catcher at some point. So, but the dog doesn't understand, and the dog misunderstands what the owner is saying to it, and the dog narrates throughout the whole movie. It's a girl, and she narrates the whole story, so you have an insight into what she's thinking. And she misconstrues what her owner says, and she thinks he says, you know, go home. And so he takes her and drops her off at this farm in New Mexico, 400 miles away. And the dog was like, well, I'm supposed to go home. So it takes off into the wilderness and tries to walk its way home. And it's this great adventure where it goes through the wilderness, it goes through cities, it meets a giant bobcat and makes friends with it. It encounters some vicious-ass wolves. Sorry for language if there's any kids watching, but it encounters some wolves, it encounters other people along the way, and kind of gets, for a short time, adopted by different people. And this dog, it takes a journey of like 2.5 years to make it back home. And all this time, it was heart-wrenching because all this time the owner was coming right back to get the dog. Like the next day or something. It shows the dog leaving the ranch where it was dropped off and the owner driving right past to come pick it up. And they just miss each other like that. And then 2.5 years later, you know, the dog is on this journey. It's really good. It's really good. And there's something about me in the past couple years. I don't know if I'm getting older. I don't know what's going on. But I tear up a lot easier. But I tell you, this movie had me tear up a couple times. And one time, just straight lose it. Like, it was bad. Like, towards the end, I'm like, tears. But yeah, fantastic film. I highly recommend it. Go see it. If you like stuff like this where I talk about movies, TV shows, comic books, nerd stuff, pop culture, if you're into that sort of thing, subscribe for more because that's what I do here. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.